That brings us to our discussion agenda tonight, item number 15, which is proposed revisions to the policy regarding promotion and retention of students, shown in Exhibit F. Dr. Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Board members, if you will join me, Exhibit F, page 5, and I will go ahead and preface you all, the changes in one will affect changes in another. So you may see some questions answered when you get into another policy or to another rule. We'll be discussing 3 policies under this discussion agenda, along with 2 rules for your consideration. As we look at the suggestions or revisions on page 5 of your exhibit, first we're going to talk about promotion and retention of students. You'll see a lot of things have been stricken and or updated. So for example, under the kindergarten section, you're going to see an addition of the student assistance team. That's just to update our language to make sure that we have defined the processes that we have employed now in School District 5. We made it very specific as to which team is going to be involved with these decisions regarding promotion and retention. You'll also notice with the heading of the addition of and retention, we thought it made sense to parents to be able to find things coupled together rather than having to search for where to find some answers that they may have. The paragraphs that you see stricken or suggested to be stricken are to make sure that we have things placed in the right policy and or rule. So the entire paragraph that you see under kindergarten has actually been moved to an acceleration because we felt like this information was more relevant to a discussion about acceleration rather than promotion or retention, if that makes sense. Flipping on to page 6, you will notice consistently under all the grade levels or the clustering of grade levels, we have suggested to strike criterion 2. Looking at the 75% expectation of grade levels, currently our gauging of student standards, we do not have one common assessment that we could say how to calculate that 75%. And then if you look on in that paragraph where it mentions state testing as the year gets older, we are receiving state assessment, summative assessment information typically in June or July, which is well after a parent needs to know what to expect for the coming school year. So we felt like it was more practical to eliminate criterion 2 under all those headings for those 2 reasons. As you look ahead to grade level 3, this is going to be the grade level that is impacted first by the legislation of Read to Succeed. You're going to hear more about that this evening, but 3rd grade is going to be a critical year. Right now, the cohort to be first impacted by this is our current 2nd grade cohort. So this will go into effect for them in the fall of their 3rd grade year, which will be fall of 2017, which is explained in detail on page 7 of the recommendations to revision of this policy. We have taken this from the school board model policy and made sure that it was matching School District 5 practices. So what you see tonight are recommendations from the School Board Association, but also it is relevant to the information and the instructional practices we have here in School District 5. If you can bear with me, I've got a few more pages. I'm going to talk you through bird's eye view rather than many details. Page 8, continue on with 4th and 5th grade. Again, test scores are delivered to us in June, sometimes July. So you'll see the consistency of recommending that we strike criterion 2. But you'll notice the addition of final determination of promotion or retention rests with the principal. The principal is heavily involved with students, with families, with consideration and conversations. So we feel like the principal needs to be added as a key player with this process because of their direct link with students, with teachers, and with families. Then looking ahead to grades 6 through 8, lots of deletions there for the reasons that I've stated earlier. When you get on to page 9, grades 9 through 12, you're going to see that we have updated our expectations again to align with the School Board Association model policy to make sure that we are in compliance with state regulations and that our instructional program is accepted by the State Department of Education here in South Carolina. And then finally, for this particular policy, on page 10, you see academic assistance, trying to make sure that we have defined what we mean by academic assistance here in School District 5, but again, align with the school board policy that is the model policy delivered to us, which leads to a brand new, on page 11, administrative rule with lots of details, so you see nothing but blue on these few pages. Again, trying to give details to parents such as the 2nd paragraph, 2nd line to your far right, The request must be made in writing to the school principal prior to May 1st if a parent or guardian is asking for their child to be retained. We look at all the criteria, of course, that we have in School District 5. You're going to see a lot of information, again, about Read to Succeed, along with retention conference information. As we have gotten these policies prepared for you, I have to commend our directors, Mr. Dean, Mr. Giuliano, Dr. Slatton. In addition to all of our principals, they have looked over this with great detail to make sure what we say is what we do and what we do is right for children. So you're going to see the revisions that are in place are in practice, and this gives us an opportunity to record for families to take away some of that confusion as to how do I seek out if I want my child retained because I just don't think they're ready, or how do I seek out if I want my child accelerated. So a lot of conversation has gone into the draft that you see here this evening, which carries over on to page 13. So 12 and 13 have a lot of the language. If you have a student that has an IEP, an individualized plan, education plan, and a child is not reading on grade level, what do we do to make sure that child is given every opportunity to be successful with their IEP, but also with grade level expectations? So the good cause exemption you see defined on pages 12 and that go on to page 13, we take into consideration the sensitivity to practice with our families of students with identified special needs, but also making sure that we're trying to put the student interests first. We do not want a child repeating third grade that may be a year or two or even more behind their grade level cohort, because we're concerned about the social and emotional health in addition to the academic difficulties that child may have. So, Mr. Gant, that was a lot in a little bit, but I'm not quite sure how many details to go through for our discussion this evening, but I'll be happy to accept any questions. If you'd like me to plow on, I'll take your lead.
Okay, that was a great explanation, and I love the fact that they all, with all the changes, clean up in a brand-new rule or a brand-new policy. So I'll open it up for questions if somebody has questions. Ms. Hammond?
Well, since Ms. Hutchinson said that we can't talk too much because we have a ball game later tonight, but I'm teasing her. She said we really could stay. But there is a lot in this, and I just want to say, as a teacher, I think it's really important for parents and the school board to understand it. And I don't think just even one night with a bunch of questions from me is going to make everybody understand it. But I do have some, and since this is just the first, this is discussion,
Right.
I would entertain if you would rather us study it and come back with questions, because there's a lot, the whole initiative with the summer reading camps and even the governors, we know that kids are being promoted in the past when they couldn't read. And the literacy is the key to the dropouts and everything. And so this is just to my heart of why I'm on the board. So I do have I have a lot of questions, but I do not want to just ask them all tonight. I really, haven't read every word of this. I just know a lot about the Read to Succeed
Right,
as a teacher
Absolutely.
and what's expected of us. But I would certainly like to do my due diligence to have the right questions to help parents and other teachers understand what we as a board are going to,
Yes, ma'am.
what we're saying about it.
And Ms. Hammond, I appreciate that. And when we get to number 17, I may give you a preview of some questions that you and parents may have that specifically addresses our summer school policy, which you see is going to be updated and discussed this evening as well.
Well, one question I would ask, several times through here, it's final determination of promotion or retention rests with the principal. Would that say to a parent or to a student, it's not the grade they've made in that class that year? Old-timey thinking like, you pass or you fail because of X grade. And I know we've lowered the grade that's passing now. 60 is passing. But does that mean they really are at the level to move forward to be successful at the next reading level? And, and reading is the whole key.
Right.
Even in math now, they have to read, and they don't realize that. So that, I think that would be one thing that came out at me is, how is it put back on a principal?
Right. Well, I'll just use one example on page 6. If we can look at third grade, because that's the grade impacted first by Read to Succeed, mandatory retention. If you notice with the first criterion, it says a student has earned a passing grade as a final yearly average in English language arts and mathematics.
It does have a grade.
Of course, we do teach other things. Science and social studies are not to be overlooked, but these are the two critical core subjects that we're focusing on in this regard for third grade. And if you look at what we suggest now to be the second criterion, the student must have met attendance requirements Dr. Harris will tell you, we take attendance very seriously in this school district, and we take every effort and every means that we can to make sure that we are recovering when there is an attendance issue, whether it's health, whether it's illness in the family, whatever that may be affecting the child, we take it very seriously. So when we say that rests with the principal, it also is inclusive of the parent being involved with it. I can tell you statistically, we retain very few students in School District 5. Our principals under Dr. Hefner's vision, as well as principals, all agree with this. Retaining a student based on an academic criteria, it may not be in the child's best interest. Instead, we're to offer those intervention services to make sure that we've given every effort to a child to catch up. Research shows us the more a child is retained, the less likely they're going to graduate. So rather than retaining a student, we want to take every effort, and you'll see later the good cause exemption later on the policy, which begins on page 7 of the draft. We're going to take every effort that we can to capture a child early to intervene, but when a child may not be mastering, we're going to intervene in every way that we can. They can be successful with their peer group without being retained.
Do we have any programs like, say, like, I'm going to just call it this, a school within a school, like, let's say, you're so right about retention, but say that's fourth graders, not where you want to be, but we would have some type of classroom within the class, and they're out of that class to catch up. I mean, those are the kind of, I didn't know if any of, if some of the new initiatives, even from the State Department, are going to give us, well, they never give us enough funds, but, that's a way, what you're saying, instead of retaining that child,
Right.
is there a way within our school, they stay in whatever grade they're in, but they get out of there at a certain reading or math, and they get helped, and they catch up all within the same year?
If you imagine a pyramid, we would consider Tier 1 being the instruction that every child receives on grade level with the core academic programs. We focus with interventions with either mathematics or with ELA reading specifically throughout the elementary schools, intermediate, and middle schools. Now, high school, of course, Mr. Eagle could talk with you ad nauseum about our selection at the high school level. We have a plentiful choices, very plentiful at the high school level. We have a Tier 2 intervention. That may be where a student receives some services that goes out in a small group with the teacher that's certified. And then we have a Tier 3 intervention where a student may go out and be one-on-one or a group no more than 3. Very small groups. So depending on the child's needs, we will intervene with numbers, but making sure that there is a certified teacher who can reach that child's needs with either mathematics or with reading. So it's not a separated class because we want children to be successful with science and social studies and involved with those extracurricular experiences, but we're pulling students out where they do need the interventions to make sure they can be successful in the 2 identified areas at the elementary level of reading and mathematics.
Ms. Hammond, I appreciate your
Yeah,
comments,
I will.
and you're so right. We are in discussion. This
Yeah.
time we'll have a first reading, then a final, but I do appreciate that. And as always, I know that Dr. Melton would entertain any questions between now and the next meeting and even after we have that first reading. So I do appreciate that. Ms. Baumgartner.
Just wanted to know, I know sometimes when a kid, particularly like a kindergartner or a first grader, and the parents feel like they're not ready, and maybe the
ma'am.
principal thinks that they should, and I understand most of the time the parents are right in that section. I know a lot of times we want to, do the parents have a right to keep the child back if they feel strongly that the child's not mature and academically ready, even though maybe they're not scoring what we would have to keep them back?
Yes, ma'am. We want to make sure that we work closely with the family. So if a school team, a student assistance team were to make a recommendation that the parent disagreed with, they can appeal it to us at the district level. In the 5 years that I've had this position, I think that I could identify for you 2 different cases where a parent has disagreed, and we've supported the parent both times. It is not done without consideration, without direct face-to-face conferencing, is to make sure the parent understands here's a short-term impact, but this could be a long-term impact. So we try to make sure that we have that experience with the parent directly, and then we put something in the child's cumulative record or permanent record that travels with them throughout their school experience. So there's always an appeals process if a parent were to disagree, because we know that parents know their children best, and we honor that.
Question? Milton, you want to go to, take us to item 16, acceleration of students?
Yes, sir. So we're in Exhibit G now. Acceleration of students, you will see a policy and also revisions to the rule here. Acceleration, of course, is done with a very sensitive process to make sure that we are being responsive to a parent's request. So we wanted to make sure we started off these revisions with what do we actually mean by acceleration, because sometimes we can get caught up in the education lingo and a parent may not understand. So you see the introductory sentence simply says when a student skips a grade, and then we go on to define what that may look like. We are looking at whole grade acceleration to make sure that a child wants to get a full year ahead of their cohort. They do that. It's not based on a semester because we're looking at whole year. So the revisions that you see on page 4 of this exhibit, you see that we've changed it from superintendent to chief instructional officer. We wanted to make sure that we had more of a direct instructional impact first. If there is an appeal, of course, it would go to Dr. Hefner if that were necessary. You see with the third bullet, we are looking to charge a fee, an assessment fee, because this takes time from Dr. Harris's staff and also from instructional staff. We try to take every parent request that we have and have the right person do the assessment who's most qualified to make the recommendation to us. Dr. Harris and I can both tell you this takes time. The people that we have involved with this process are very deliberate and very thorough with what they do. It is not a quick assessment. It also includes interviewing with the family, lots of parent conferences with that, and then, of course, the team is involved with it. You'll also notice beneath all the bullets, the first statement in blue print, a written request from the parent or legal guardian must be submitted to the chief instructional officer before July 31st. We have had some situations where we are a week away from opening school and a parent reaches out to us and asks us, will you test my child for acceleration? That does not allow us ample time to make a thorough assessment and make a proper recommendation. So we felt like having this detail here would help us make sure that we were ready to start the school year successfully, the family could have time to be prepared, and the students prepared emotionally for what they're about to begin. If you look for acceleration of a student into grades 1 through 8, we tried to make sure that we've defined our criteria, and of course it's based on achievement, it's based on their cognitive, their social, emotional, their reasoning. We're very thorough there that it's not one piece of data that makes a decision, it's many variables coming together. And then you see that if there's a request that's made to me, what we then do as far as a process. The school has to create a student assistance team, and then we put here who those personnel need to be a minimum. So if I say a parent, well, we're going to pull together an SAT team, and a parent says, well, what is that? We've defined it here. We have to make sure that we've included school principal, guidance counselor, and those other identified staff there so that we can understand the roles involved so that they can then start the process. And then the decision, of course, is made. If a whole grade acceleration is approved, the team must convene within the first 4 to 6 weeks of a school year to determine if the placement is appropriate. A child may do very well one-on-one, but when the child gets into a classroom of 18 students, maybe we see a difference there emotionally, maybe we see a difference there with behavior. So we want to make sure that we keep a watch on it. It's not a decision that's made one time and forgotten. It's a decision that we make and then we monitor to make sure the child is successful and the parent is comfortable.
Any questions on this policy? Mr. Cates?
You mentioned the fee. Is there will there be a policy in place to waive that fee if necessary?
This is going to be something that's fairly new to us, and Dr. Harris and his team, along with the instructional team, I can't announce to you today what our recommendation will be for what that fee may be for the coming year. We have tried it for this school year because we have to make sure that we're bringing in staff that are not under contract, and because they're coming in offering services, we've got to make sure that we compensate them for the time that they're giving to us. But if we waited until they were under contract, it's going to be difficult for us to have this process ready to be successful for the school year to start. So when it comes to a sliding scale, Mr. Richardson and his department are very involved with that to make sure that students are not applied fees if they are a free or reduced lunch student. That would be something we would certainly take into consideration. Would you recommend some details there about that, or?
Well, no, not at this point. I'll wait for your recommendation.
Okay.
I just think it does go back to speak to what we've discussed in the past with the whole academic equity and making sure folks are able to access the resources regardless of their ability to pay that fee. So I'll wait
Okay.
on your recommendation. And as someone who's taken advantage of these SAT teams as a parent, what a great resource. Thank you. I had a son that needed some help to return to the classroom post-concussion. It was that SAT team that met to make sure we were doing what needed to be done academically. Just a great resource. I think we could do a better job of letting parents know when those teams can be engaged and how to go about requesting the support of those teams. So again, thank you.
Ms. Baumgartner.
I understand that acceleration, particularly in lower grades, I know a lot of times in high school you can take more units to get to graduate sooner, but in lower grades, I've talked to some people that are in gifted and talented, and they say really even the brightest of bright kids, the emotional and everything else, that is really just not a very good idea. So do we see a lot of that? Do we really see somebody going from first to third, or?
No, ma'am, most of our acceleration, and Dr. Harris may choose to weigh in with this, is primarily the kindergarten, first grade route. We do have some parents whose child may not qualify for 4K because of the programs in which we operate, so they want to accelerate into 5K to make sure their child gets into School District 5. But once you get past that threshold of what I consider early childhood, we really do not see very much of those requests.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Dr. Milton. That'll take us to our Summer School Policy Exhibit H, item number 17.
So if you will join me on page 2 of Exhibit H. This is regarding summer school, and we're looking to make sure that we have established a basic structure for how summer school is to operate within School District 5. You will notice a deliberate change from will to may. The purpose for promotion, the district may offer a summer school program whenever there's enough interest by students and parents or legal guardians for such a program. We feel that we need to say to parents, we would like to offer it, but we can't necessarily afford it, so we may offer it if there's enough interest from parents. At the elementary level, besides summer reading camp, we are not offering a summer opportunity. We do at the middle level, we do at the high school level, but not at elementary because of the cost, but also because there's not been expressed need. We are not retaining very many children at the elementary level in School District 5 because of philosophy. You're going to see just some updates with language such as advanced ed, as opposed to what was here before of SACs there, so we've updated that. You'll see the sentence has been stricken about 9 through 12 because we want to make sure that we're in compliance with regulations. So we've been very specific with grades 1 through 8, what a school does to promote. Then we're very specific later with 9 through 12 about awarding Carnegie units to our high school students for summer programs. Then you see new information, and again, this is based on the school board model policy regarding summer reading camps. We have had those existing in School District 5 for 3 years now. We've had some funds coming in. So you're going to see outlined here what we believe about summer reading camps as far as such as we provide transportation to our students to come to summer reading camp to be successful, to be able to participate, and then how we review their progress to then make a decision about promotion or retention if necessary. And then finally on page 3, you're going to see all the updates with the new state board regulations to make sure that that has been refreshed and in compliance as well. So Mr. Gant, that will conclude my report unless there are other questions.
Any questions on the summer school? Ms.
One
Hammond?
quick one. Do we do the summer school, say if it's a high school credit, is it at one of the 4 high schools and everybody goes to that one? Or it's 2?
Early projection on summer reading camp in elementary, how many sites do we probably have?
We have one site in School
One
District
site?
5. We have houses at one school, and we have, Dave Wiseman and Mr. Richardson have magically worked it out. We transport the students in that participate into one school, and it gives us an opportunity to create a nice community of students across School District 5 to come together for the time that they have during the summer reading camp. And I have to say a shout out to Mr. Giuliano, our Director of Elementary Education, and our teachers. Every year that we've had a celebration, it has been children dress up, their families come, and they are truly appreciative and can see the growth in their child. They do not see it as punishment. They see it as an opportunity to celebrate their child. So I look forward to having another one this summer.
Of the celebration, and I heard about the one last year. It was great.
Oh, it's tremendous.
Wonderful. All right, thank you very much, and that will take us to our item number 18, which is a proposed general operating budget under discussion for 2017 and 18. Mr. Richardson.
members of the board. It says we're there. Okay, now, there we go. Much of the information I'll provide to you tonight, we discussed probably the last couple of weeks, so hopefully most of this will not be new, although I do have a couple of new items in here for you, and I also have some new information since this was put in your board packet that I'll get to momentarily. But just to let you know, you've got a yellow booklet of the detail, and I will refer to some of this as we go through the PowerPoint, if we go through the PowerPoint. Okay. This is information you've seen before, and this is just the information based on where we currently are through the appropriations process. The House of Representatives passed their version of the Appropriations Act on March 15th. The information that you see contained within, the numbers that you see contained within this budget are based upon this information. I will go over once again, just very briefly for you, some of the state funding changes that we're looking at for 2018. There's $38 million increase to the EFA to raise the base student cost $50. We've got $25.4 million to cover the health insurance, employer health insurance premium increases for next year. There was $100 million in the EIA for facilities for the plaintiff school districts. We've got the elimination of $23.8 million in lottery funding that we were receiving for technology purposes. There's also the redirection of $23 million in EIA funding for aid to school districts that is going to be used now as part of the settlement with the U.S. Department of Education over the IDEA, State Maintenance of Fiscal Effort. The House currently has in their budget to sunset the National Board Certification Program. Part of the pension reform bill that we've heard a lot about will increase our employer contributions effective in July 1st, 2017 by 2%. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more a little later on. I got some new information on that. But it will increase 1% each year until 2023. It also increases the employee contribution from the current 8.66% to 9%. As a result of some action by school districts and boards across the state, as part of the pension reform, the highway bill, there was $37.6 million in EIA funds that were being redirected to pay for roads. We got that reestablished back into the education budget. $24.6 million of that will go to the Abbeville plaintiff school districts for capital improvements. We got $12 million back for technology, and $1 million going to the South Carolina Youth Challenge Academy. I did receive some new information on the pension reform that's going to make a significant impact on our budget to the good. Part of what we've been hearing all along, and we got some clarification last Friday, but part of what we've been hearing all along was that 2% increase was going to be on the employer. The costs were going to increase 2% on the employer for the retirement. However, what we've learned is that the retirement system, or PEBA, 1% of that is going to be directly appropriated to them from the General Assembly. So they're actually only increasing our cost 1%. That's about $1 million impact to our school district. So some of these numbers that I show you that are red won't be quite as red when we get done with changing this up. So as I said, the first one there, obviously with the employer retirement contribution rate will be increasing 1% for the district. We are still building in a 3.3% increase for our employer health insurance premium. We have the step increases for all of our eligible employees. I'm still projecting a minimal growth in the mill value, although I do not know what that will be at this time. And of course, the state's still grappling over the big issues statewide, with only $446 million to go around, additional $446 million to go around. We have, in this budget, included the elimination of school fees for advanced placement core classes. We eliminated all the other core class fees for the current fiscal year, 2017, and so we're going to recommend the elimination of the remainder of those core AP fees. The fee schedule that you have in this booklet here actually has those particular courses outlined for you. And we're also looking to add a technology fee in lieu of a device insurance requirement that we've had in this district. Parents have been charged $40 for the insurance on devices. That's created a situation where you have students on free and reduced that may not be able to afford the fee, so they don't have a device to take home with them. We're proposing adding a $35 technology fee for grades 6 through 12, which is also reflected in the yellow book for your information. We will eliminate the $40 insurance fee for all the district-owned devices. Now, this fee will apply to all students, regardless of whether or not they bring their own device or not. But this gets us out of the situation with the insurance requirement. It allows our free and reduced students to either have a lesser fee or no fee, but still have a device.
Mr. Gant, could I ask
Ma'am.
him right there, if you would have a child, though, that couldn't pay the $35 fee, they just wouldn't have one to take home, or would they have one when they're in the class?
They would, this is the reason why we're proposing the fee, so that for students who can't afford it because they're on free and reduced, then they will still get the device.
I got you. So there'll still be kids. In other words, we're not eliminating the fact that there'll be children that if they couldn't pay 40, they're still not going to pay 35.
Right. We've also included some additional staff, which I'll highlight for you in just a couple of slides. We've also increased our cost for terminal leave payout due to the end of the Terry program coming in June of 2018. We may have some increases in some of our energy budgets, but overall we're okay, we think, based on our current usage across the district. And we're looking to upgrade our district energy control systems to help with some of these increased costs we have during peak demand times, which are typically either early in the morning or late in the afternoon. Here's some of the budget changes that we have currently built into this version of our 2018 general fund budget. We've got the additional certified staff, we've got 9 additional certified staff members totaling $771,000 roughly. We've got additional support staff of a hearing officer, a nursing support assistant, school choice secretary, 2 additional safety officers, and 2 technology infrastructure specialists for a total of $392,480. We've, at worst case scenario, expecting to have somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3 million for our Terry leave payout. We've included that in this budget, along with all the usual step increases, other type of terminal leave payouts, fringe benefit increases, and then, school supply allocations that change. That's obviously the biggest portion of this increase. We're looking at our total increase of 5.39% to our general fund budget, totaling $9,399,460. I'm going to briefly go through the general fund revenue outlook for you. But as you can see right here, well, you probably don't, but in the yellow booklet, we have a comparison of the current year's budget and the proposed budget for next year. As of now, I'm not projecting any increase in the current taxes just because I don't have a good handle on what I expect the mill value to be yet. state revenue, based upon what we're looking at currently, based on the House version of the budget, it's totaling $107,822,686. As part of this, we're showing a fringe benefit increase of $752,000. EFA, we're looking at a $2.26 million increase, and we're receiving an additional $380,000 in the property tax relief Tier 3. The rest of those numbers are the same as they were in the current year. We're expecting, as of now, without any increase in millage or in the value of a mill, of $177,188,940. This just shows you graphically the breakdown, excuse me, on how the revenue is expected to come in. Gives you a little bit broader categories here, state, federal, and local. Now we get to the easy part, expenditures. These numbers that you're seeing here, we also have reflected in the last page of the budget booklet after the expenditures. We're showing salaries of $114,469,602. Fringe benefits of $47,045,071. Contracted services, $12,332,616. Supplies and materials, $8,667,359. Other objects, $959,734, and then any transfers and payments of $431,745 for a total of $183,906,127. The salaries that you're seeing here are up about $3.3 million over the current year. That's mainly due to the Terry payout, or what we expect it to be, and the step increase for our employees. The fringe benefits line is up $5.9 million due to, right now, 2% employer cost increase for retirement and a 3.3% health and dental increase. But like I mentioned earlier, based on the information we received last Friday, the retirement piece will only be about 1%. So like I said, that'll reduce that line item approximately $1 million just from that one move alone. This just shows our breakdown of expenditures or the way they're proposed. Obviously, salaries and fringe being the big items there, and they total about 88% of our total general fund budget. So to recap everything for you, we're looking at right now projected revenue of $177,188,940. Projected expenditures, $183,906,127. And a projected shortfall of $6,717,187. Now, that's a big number, which I hope you were kind of prepared for since we've talked about this the past couple of weeks, but it's not going to be as bad as you're seeing right here because of what I just mentioned to you. We've got a couple things that we're going to be looking at, and by the 24th of April, excuse me, we're going to have some much better numbers for you that hopefully you will not see that big red number. I'm not saying you won't see a red number, but it won't be that large. Like I said, I don't have a projection in here for local revenue increasing yet. Hopefully we'll have that information by the 24th. Our expenditures will be going down. Assuming everything else remains the same, our expenditures will be going down due to what I discussed earlier about the retirement. The funds that we have included in this budget for the Terry payout are non-recurring. So that is not something we will have to do after this year. And as we go through this, we're going to be looking at all of our categorical funding to see if we can help reduce the impact on the general fund budget. As it stands right now, we look to gain about $600,000 in some at-risk funding as the state continues to expand the CDEP program, 4K program for the plaintiff districts. That just means more money coming to us through EIA for 4K program, so hopefully that'll help us. So right now, based upon what I'm looking at here, we're looking at the $6.7 million shortfall. We can reduce that by about $1 million based on the retirement. Another $600,000 or so we'll be able to move salaries out of the general fund. And if you take into account that $3 million of what we're proposing is non-recurring, we're somewhere in the neighborhood now of about $2.1 million in the red, as it stands right now.
Would you say 2.1?
Yes, ma'am. And that's as it stands right now.
2.1.
Dr. Hefner, you haven't seen this yet, but today I called and got this letter that you'll probably be getting in the mail tomorrow, so I can find out what our population growth factor is for our millage increase. That's 0.9%. So we are allowed by law to increase millage 2.16%, which equates to 5.4 mills. This is just our district budget calendar. Obviously, it's March 27th. This is our discussion reading. We hopefully will have some pretty good numbers for our first reading on April 24th and ultimately have a passed budget by May 22nd.
Can you go back 2 slides, please?
Sure.
Just want to make sure, because you have numbers that,
This is the slide you're talking about?
all right, thank you.
Do you have a question about it or just?
No,
want-
no, there was
okay.
just, I wanted to make sure I had those, you've supplied numbers there that we didn't have in our handout because you just got them today, and I
Right,
wanted to
right.
make sure I had those.
Sorry. Yes.
That's it. Any other preliminary question? I hope your crystal ball gets much clearer in the next month. I'm sure it will, but that's much better than, possibly much better than it was a week or so ago.
Well, I think I mentioned to you, I wanted to really scare you the first time we talked about it, and then,
And he did.
Did a great job. Did a great job.
no, I mean, it's not perfect, but I do feel like, and this, I saw this quote, so I thought it was great because although I am somewhat optimistic, I'm also a realist, so we're going to be adjusting our sails to get this ship sailing in the right direction, hopefully in the next few weeks. I'll be glad to entertain any questions. I haven't touched upon anything in this yellow booklet, but this is really all the detail of all that information I just provided to you. But I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. Hutchison has a question, I believe.
Just real quickly, and I apologize, I don't remember what you said the value of a mill is. I know you answered that last week.
Approximately, right now, 247,000,
Thank you.
which I guess if you do the math, that's about, what, $1.3 million total we would be allowed to raise.
Thanks.
Ms. Hammond.
Oh, from just the preliminary, I think I cut this off. For the preliminary budget picture you gave us last time, what was where did we make up most of that?
No, this
Yeah,
is
we-
exactly, this is what I gave you. I mean, as far as,
But I thought we were, well, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but this seems so much better. I was just trying to see where we made up most of this. We were looking, I thought, right, we might be 5 million short.
well, I thought we were going to be closer to 7 million short, so it is
Yeah,
much
you were
better.
scaring us.
That $1 million swing really helps
Okay.
with the retirement
Yeah,
piece.
yeah, I wrote that down, but.
And then the other piece that, I mean, although we're still in the red, you know, I'm saying that we got about approximately $3 million is non-recurring.
Right.
So, you know,
Like the Terry, the part that big
exactly.
payout.
So, you know, I would say that we would be okay, since it's a non-recurring expenditure, to use non-recurring funds to pay for at least a portion of that, if not all of it.
Any other question? Mr. Richardson, I know as always, if a board member has a question, when they get into the detail in the booklet, I think that's where the real detail, or any of this, you'd entertain that prior to next meeting, so
Absolutely.
if anybody has something, please pass it along. We appreciate the it's coming more into a better focus right now. I hope it continues. We also know the winds change, right?
Well, just so you know, the Senate Finance Committee is taking the budget up tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Hopefully, those numbers, if anything, will get better, not worse, but that's always a possibility as well. I expect them to probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of right where we're looking at right now. And I would like to say, Dr. Melton, I'll get you out of here before 9 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Not seeing any other questions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Ms. Baumgardner,
I move that we adjourn.
and do we have a second? Ms. Hammond seconds. Sorry. All those in favor, please raise your hand, and I want to thank all of you that came tonight. Thanks for all the presentations.